Pacific Northwest is a region of the American continent that starts at the state of Oregon and goes up the west coast through Washington State, northern Idaho, and the Canadian province of British Columbia. The land and water in this area fought a battle a long time ago, and today, the result is called the Puget Sound, and it manifests through the region's many bays, islands, and channels. The largest metropolitan area of this region is Greater Seattle. Nestled somewhere between Seattle proper and Vancouver, Canada, is the little town of Luthiers, about an hour drive north from Seattle on the banks of the Swinomish Channel. A quaint little gem, missed by most of the busy travelers in their haste to make good time to Vancouver or Seattle along the I-5 interstate. The town features nice little restaurants with tasty food and diverse cuisine, clubs with live music, shops with diverse woodwork and elegant clothing and jewelry, and gentle folks with a laid-back attitude and a broad smile. Every year, around the end of May, Luthiers opens its community to another hidden gem. The Luthiers from all over the world come here and exhibit their custom, innovative, handmade guitars. This year, 2024, it happened on the 17th, 18th, and 19th of May. I went last year to do a bit of recon and decided that this year I'd make a vlog on the experience of my time there. I spoke to 11 luthiers this year. I saw many guitars and had a somewhat cathartic experience. Each wood used in building the instruments has its own tonality and resonance. Each tool brings its own sharpness, abrasiveness, and smoothness to the process. It is also my belief that each luthier's curiosity, calm, anxiety, happiness, and perhaps even anger slips through the hands into the craftsmanship of making each instrument. And thus, each of them builds their instruments in their own likeness. So, in that room today, we spoke to gods and goddesses of their own shops, of their own worlds. And you see them being modest and grounded, tough and gentle, steady and excited at the same time. Nevertheless, the guitars were amazing, beautifully made, with sounds that give you goosebumps and melt your heart. So, stick around and enjoy the little conversations I had with some of the luthiers about their instruments, innovative ideas, challenges, and solutions they found to various problems they'd encountered making their guitars. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience and would like to thank all the luthiers that have given me a little bit of their time to share their wisdom. I apologize to those I haven't gotten around to talk to, and I promise I will get around to many more amazing craftsmen and women next year.
So do you guys play steel string or classical?
What would you say for Northwoods Luthiers? What makes your guitars like unique? What's unique about you guys' approach to making guitars?
So, you know, it's really popular these days to want to do sustainability. People say that a lot. But for me, this started back in college. So my first kit guitar from Luthiers Mercantile, everybody did this, was a classical with a mahogany back and sides, some inexpensive cedar top or something like that. I made it. It was a horrible instrument. And the maintenance guy at the college where I was going to school, he said, oh, I know some guys. So we went off to some lumber mills and like some farmers that had saws and whatever, and we got our own wood. And I instantly loved the idea of making a walnut guitar and doing it with this native wood. I went down to the lumberyard. You can't do this these days because the quality of cedar we get at the lumberyard isn't the same. But I literally look at fence boards. And in a stack of 200 boards, there were a few boards that had super tight quarter saw grain. It's like, I just take those 3 or 4 boards, I can do my thing, And so the idea of local wood made a lot of sense to me. So today, this is Took and I, this is my wife Took, we decided to make sustainability our thing. So I'm probably never going to make a guitar out of Brazilian rosewood or Indian rosewood even, because I want to use woods that make sense sustainability wise. And this right here, this guitar is a pretty interesting example of that, right? So this is Alaskan yellow cedar, which is a very rare choice for flamenco, but there's no reason you wouldn't use it for a flamenco because it matches historically what people have used. It's a type of cypress, so it makes sense. It's not really a true cedar, right? And now in the back we have, and sides, we have Monterey cypress, not Spanish cypress. Spanish cypress is becoming endangered and is hundreds of dollars per set. And this was tremendously less expensive, but also it's available and not endangered. Now, I'd like to think of it this way. A good piece of wood is rare, but it doesn't mean it has to be endangered. In other words, you get a beautiful piece of walnut, there might not be a lot of beautiful pieces, but there's plenty of walnut out there. Right? So, for example, you look at this guitar back here, I love that top. I may never have a top that beautiful again, right? So rare, yes. Endangered, no. There's plenty of walnut in the world.
Right. So your focus, not necessarily your focus is on, because like you said, there's a lot of Brazilian rosewood. There's a lot of very exotic woods, but you're not necessarily focused on how exotic the wood is, just that it's nice.
And has proper sonic properties.
Of course.
Or can be worked in a way to have proper sonic properties. Right? So for example, let's say you've got cherry wood. Yeah. Cherry wood actually has some great sound to it if it doesn't fall apart. So how do you do that? Well, one of the secrets that people use that want to use substandard wood, one of the secrets to making a substandard wood into a standard acoustic wood is you take super glue and you let it soak into the wood. Now, why would that work? Well, it works because when it soaks in, it creates a whole different structural integrity to the wood, but it doesn't change the cell structure, right? So like if you see a cross-section magnification of cells, every wood has a different cell shape to it, right? So if you could preserve that, you would have the tone of that wood, which would be different than a different wood. But what if the wood's just not good enough? Well, this is one way to up your game.
Right.
And there's a guy in Malaysia named Jeffrey Young who taught me this, and he uses typically really substandard woods like mango and monkey palm, but he'll saturate them with super glue, and now they become structurally amazing, right? And now he can use that instead of rosewood or ebony or something like that.
Right.
There is aging.
There is.
Most of my wood has been around a while.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so even when I buy wood off of eBay, some guy in Canada or some guy on the East Coast or whatever, I have another guitar down there made of birch. The birch I got from a guy on the East Coast. It's curly red birch. I mean, when I bought it from him, he said it's been sitting in the shop for 5 or 10 years, whatever. Well, that's a good sign to me. I'll go ahead and get it. But even having said that, it needed to be given some treatment because birch is not the strongest wood out there. But in terms of sound, it's pretty impressive. So now I've got this guitar down here, which probably is the most Spanish-sounding classical guitar I've ever made, which is a shock because it's made of birch. Right? Not rosewood, but if you have a second, let me tell you the story of Brazilian rosewood, because it's a little bit like a lot of stories that become mythology, right?
Of course.
So Brazilian rosewood is the special wood, right? Maybe not. So in 18 whatever, when lots of crates and pallets of things were being shipped from South America to the Mediterranean area of Europe, the wood they used was Brazilian rosewood.
Right.
It was a junk wood. It wasn't considered good enough or big enough or consistent enough to be used for furniture or plywood, or certainly not for boat building or house building, the stuff that people needed wood for. But the guitar makers, who are always opportunists, right? They're like, well, we'll take that. And they started making guitars. There's no question that it was beautiful. It's like, I have some Indian rosewood from India, from Karnataka, that was salvaged from, trees were cut off like this. Two guys with chainsaws just walk through the forest and cut them down. And they wouldn't try to be efficient. They wouldn't try to do a good job. So then this guy I know, he would go in and with a crew of guys, and they'd dig up these roots, and they'd take this piece down several feet into the ground. It's the most beautiful rosewood you've ever seen. But, nobody wants it because it's got a lot of figure, a lot of inconsistencies in it. So you'd love to look at it, but you wouldn't want to build something straight out of it. Right?
Yeah. But for this curvature and the acoustic properties of a guitar, it works.
It's perfect. And the acoustic properties of that rosewood are no different and maybe even better than perfectly straight, cosmetically perfect rosewood, right? But, it's also harder to use. You've got to be careful with it. If it's really thin, it may have a mind of its own. And I've had a piece of that get so wild that I had to give up. It's like, this is never going to be a guitar. But I've had other pieces turn out beautiful, like this piece of walnut, which is pretty wild, but it works. And so on this, I had to do something special. On the bottom there, you've got your X brace like you normally do on a steel string, but underneath, it's got an upside-down fan like this, so that it goes across the array pattern, so that in years to come, it'll stay structurally sound. It won't separate across the array.
Okay.
Whereas if you did a traditional pattern there, you may not be giving it enough strength across the array.
Right, so what you're saying is the walnut, that's like, is that a quirk unique to walnut? Like it's just not?
To this piece of walnut.
Oh.
Right, because, because we have this weird thing happening right here, I didn't want to have a fan go like this because it would just separate maybe over the 10, 20 years from now. But the fan is going this way across these waves, right? Like this. And so it's actually serving to hold this in place for the long term.
It's bridging across the fiber.
Yeah. Giving this piece of wood what it needs to be stable. Right? You listen to it, it's got good tap tone, good integrity. Likely it's going to stay that way a long time.
That's deep.
And this has had a lot of stress on it, this guitar. We took it to Thailand over the winter, and it was on tour with a Thai pop band for a month, and they were all outdoor concerts. Okay, and it came back to us, and nothing. Looked perfect. And typically it stays in tune, all the time. So this thing's got integrity.
Can you explain the hole in the side here?
Yeah, I can.
What's going on?
So if you can visualize this, there's going to be some back pressure from this vibrating, and this is the only source of outlet.
Yeah.
There'd be some back pressure, right?
Yeah.
Not much, it's relatively insignificant, but it exists. If you put a port in like this, and it could be anywhere, it could be down here, it doesn't matter, you relieve that back pressure and you increase the front volume by 1% or 2%, Not that that necessarily matters, but you also free the top to do what it needs to do. Now, it turns out that as a player, this is a really nice experience, right? So when you're playing this, and now the sound is coming right to me,
Right to you.
even in a loud room like this,
Okay.
makes a difference.
Okay.
And that sort of eliminates the need for like maybe on-stage monitors or something because you can.
Well, it certainly helps.
It helps,
Yeah.
right.
Here, try it. Tell me what you think. Try this one. Have a seat.
Pretty much equally here. So.
Yeah. Actually, I have a pick. That's beautiful. First of all, whatever was this was the one that had the was this a smaller neck as well? Because I think
No, actually it's not, but for some reason everybody feels it's a very comfortable guitar to play.
yeah, I don't know. Like normally acoustics, it's like really.
They can be wider.
Yeah.
So
This is so helpful.
isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah.
But I also love the feel of walnut. I don't even know how to describe it. It's always been my favorite.
Yeah. It sounds. I don't even know. Yeah. It just sounds big.
Yeah.
Somebody was about to show up for me, I think.
Let him put it back.
Oh yeah. I don't want to like break it.
Oh, you won't. This thing's a tank. I think you can tell.
Oh yeah. Of course.
You know, some guitars are very delicate, and maybe you like that, right?
Right. Yeah.
But this isn't one of them.
Well, is it a case of a trade-off? Is it like the more delicate the? Oh, is this like?
I just found it, so that's yours now.
Oh, awesome! Let's go.
Take a close look at this out. Look at this right here. You'll see that the string just slides in the side and the ball just holds on the end.
Okay.
And these things are bolted into the plate on the bottom. So it makes for an incredibly stable connection. It eliminates the possibility of the bridge lifting over time. I mean, it's just not possible. And it also changes the power dynamic and the efficiency of the power transmission.
Okay.
So it's way more power right on the saddle and nowhere else, which is kind of what you want. And like I said, so they say, I can't prove this from experience, I just read this. They say it's a little brighter than in the trebles. You can really articulate the trebles better with it. That may be true, I don't know. But what I do know is it's a lot easier to use. And if you look at the science that you can find on YouTube, it shows that you do get a louder top by a very small amount, but it is louder.
Okay.
You know, some people obsess about that. And, I want that extra 2%. I don't think that makes a difference, but it's in the equation.
Of course. Idaho, USA. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Take the time.
Appreciate it.
And you make cellos and violins as well?
I make violins, cellos, mandolins, pretty much whatever someone wants.
What's unique about your approach to making guitars, would you say?
Every one of my instruments is unique. I don't have models. I work with musicians to design and build the instrument that's perfect for them. So before I make an instrument for someone, we sit down and talk for at least 2 hours, and I listen to them play, and between the two of us, we design the instrument and make it exactly perfect for them. And I'll just give you an example. This guitar is for a musician in Juneau, Alaska named Marion Call. And when I did my interview with her, I said, "What do you like about the guitar you have now, and what don't you like about it?" And she said, "Every guitar I've ever picked up feels like a bad bra. It just cuts into my side." And I said, "Well, I have a solution for that."
That's good.
I do. Tell them to look through the pile. They're all written bear claw on them. So this makes the guitar very comfortable to play, especially for a woman.
All right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so things like that. And this woman says she really likes Art Deco from the 30s, and a lot of the appliances and things from the 30s had a color scheme of green and cream. And she really likes green. She has red hair and green eyes, and so that's where the green came from.
Nice.
And how do you get this green color?
This is a stain that I put in the lacquer when I spray it on.
Okay.
So there's a clear coat and then a color coat, and then 8 clear coats over the top. And she said she grew up on the coast of Washington and she really liked abalone and beach glass. So I incorporated the glass and the abalone into the inlays. This is an Art Deco design.
So these aren't normal like you'd see in like a guitar store, like
No, I make these from hand.
Right. So that's glass in the.
Yes, I've used a lot of glass. Like this is also glass. I use a lot of stained glass and mirrored glass in my instruments because it gives me a full color palette.
Okay. Any like, I don't know, preferences for wood or like what acoustically?
Sitka spruce is the standard for the top, but I've also used western red cedar and redwood.
Okay.
The idea is that you want a soundboard material that's very light but very strong. If you look at the physics of how the guitar works, the mechanical energy produced by this vibrating string is very small. And yet you're asking it to vibrate this whole area of the top, the bridge, and all the bracing that's underneath. And so you have to make your top and your bracing as light as possible with a very strong material so that it will sing when you pluck the string.
Right.
But you can't make it too thin because with a set of medium strings, there's 180 pounds of pull. And if you didn't brace it properly, the guitar would just come apart. It would just, the top would distort.
You say 180 pounds per string or total?
No, all 6.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a lot, 180
Still a lot, yeah, yeah.
pounds,
It's
imagine
human, yeah.
playing tug of war with
trying
someone.
yeah, it's a human
that's
being.
A lot.
Human being.
Well, a whole human being, not me, but a whole human being.
If you were to tug a war with someone
Right,
and you could pull 180 pounds, it's a lot of force.
Right, that's true.
Well, so that kind of brings me to another question. We've talked to some other people here, and a lot of people seem to prefer, because normally acoustics, from my understanding, it's like an X bracing. That's what kind of gives it the sort. Is there any specific bracing pattern that you have, or is it just like, or is it mostly just
the structural foundation? If your sound hole is in the middle, like this, the structural foundation is an X.
Right.
What you do after that, you can vary quite a bit. My bracing inside is beyond the X is more of a radial pattern, like spokes on a wheel, whereas the standard Martin is not like that. So there are a lot of things you can do acoustically with the placement of the bracing, but then if you go to a situation like my friend Ben Wilborn over here, who puts the sound hole up here in the upper corner, that frees up a whole possibility of a different bracing pattern. And his guitars sound different because he doesn't have that big X. It's more like spokes on a wheel, a radial pattern. Okay. And so there are different things you can do. Tom over there has taken the sound hole and put it here in the cutaway. So his guitars have a different pattern inside also. But the X is strong because you're creating triangles, and the triangle is the strongest architectural shape.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to. I'm interested in hearing about how, like, not everyone is a luthier, not everyone can be. What made you decide, like, I want to build guitars? This is legit.
I was 17 years old when I built my first guitar. Okay. That was 51 years ago. I was taking guitar lessons from a guy in New Jersey where I grew up. And my teacher had this gorgeous jazz guitar made by a man named Sam Kuntz. And the first lesson I had, I looked at the guitar and I said, wow, is that a Gibson? He said, no, my friend Sam Kuntz over there in Linden made this guitar. And it just blew my mind. I said, how could one person make a guitar like this? I thought guitars had to be made in a factory. He said, no, Sam makes these by himself in his little shop. I said, I need to find out how this is done. So I decided to try to make an electric guitar. And my guitar teacher said, well, go talk to Sam. And so I went and talked to him. He wasn't very friendly because he was busy. But anyway, he sold me a neck and some pickups and the controls, and I made an electric guitar, and it played. I was like, wow, this is cool. I made my own guitar. So then I started to make another one. And then I went off to college in a little town in Massachusetts. And the first day I was there, I met a guy named Bill Cumpiano, who had worked for Michael Gurian, who I was just talking to here. And Bill had just opened his shop, and I went in, I showed him the guitar I had made and the one I had started. And I said, I want to learn how to do this. And he said, well, I can't pay you. I just opened my shop here. And I said, no, I'm a student here at the college. I don't need to be paid. I just want to learn how to do this. And he said, well, okay, if you want to help me out in the shop, I'll show you some things. I said, great, what can I do? And he handed me the broom and said, clean up the sawdust. I said, okay, I'm on it, boss. And so I became a guitar maker there. I ended up leaving school after that 1 year and went to work for him full time. And I've been making instruments ever since. I'm excited about all of them, but there's one that was hanging here that belongs to my friend Tracy Spring in Bellingham. She has it teaching a workshop right now, but it may be the best sounding guitar I've ever made. I made it 12 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll be back here in a while, in a few hours.
Oh, all right. Let's see. What do you reckon would be like What's your least favorite part about being a luthier? Is there anything that's challenging? That's like
The least favorite part, spraying lacquer isn't very fun because the lacquer thinner is really toxic. And so I have a dedicated spray booth in my shop with a big fan, and I wear an industrial respirator. But spraying the lacquer is probably the worst part.
Okay.
Once I get the guitar sprayed, it's like you're home free.
after that it's
Yeah.
Well, I think that wraps it up kind of for my questions. Is there anything, I mean,
No,
So the
it
guy,
was a pleasure.
nice to talk to you too.
that's very pretty.
I wore my nails out. I should have done my left hand, because I'm a player. It took forever. How you doing?
What would you guys consider to be like unique about your approach to making guitars?
What's unique?
Yeah.
This is my own design based on golden ratio.
So the body shape is.
Yep. So that's the actual body shape. And this is what I actually used to design my guitars. And I liked it so much, I just turned it into a card. What else is unique? Yeah, go ahead and take one. What else is unique is that I use Falcate bracing. I started out with Richlite, which is recycled paper for bracing. And then I moved on to carbon reinforced spruce. But it's all still Falcate braced, so it's a fingerstyle type guitar. It has very even frequency distribution across the spectrum of the guitar. So it has a lot of mid-range to it, a lot of mids. Every string has a chance to vibrate. Fully compensated nut. In this case, this is 0 fret. That one down there is actually carved nut, the one at the end.
This one?
Yeah, that one's carved.
Oh, yeah.
So that shape is the same shape as this.
Right.
And then the shape of this is the same shape as that. So they're fully compensated. So everything's in tune. Tune it up, put a capo anywhere, still in tune.
So that just, what that does is, it's just tuning stability sake.
Yeah, it gives a more even temperament across all the notes.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a guitar up here or just in general that you remember particularly fondly?
Fondly?
Like favorite, I guess?
They were all a challenge to make.
Right.
I like making this ukulele because of the wood. And I didn't know how nice it would be until I put the finish on it. I can tell it's figured and quilted, but as soon as I put the finish on, it comes out. I actually redid the top on this one. So I took the old top off and put a new one on there, and it just looks great and sounds great. This one was the biggest challenge.
I think it's called.
This one was the biggest challenge. So many attempts and failures at this one, just to get it to this point. So I was thinking about what would the guitar look like with the braces on the outside. And of course, that's impractical. You can't really do that. But I thought, well, what can I do to make it feel interesting? It is heavy as hell, but it has it feels interesting.
Oh yeah.
And I have another guitar at home, which is my happiness guitar. It's got a dove and a rose and lots of flowers. This is my sadness guitar. So black roses, a dead rose falling on a raven, teeth. So this is like the opposite. So it's like a graveyard. So this is the most memorable one, I guess. But also the most challenging. Yeah.
Well, this is what it's all about.
Yes, moving past that. So, what made you decide to start doing this, to be a luthier?
I wanted a really nice guitar. Can't afford one, so I figured why not try to build one. And given as much time and money as I put into it, I could have bought some really nice guitars by now instead of learning how to build one. I also wanted to build one back in high school, and my shop teacher said, "You'll never get it right." And I just think he didn't want to do it. So that was the end of that. And then, back in 2017, I started looking around again and said, "Yeah, we should give that a try." So it's fascinating to me.
So you've been at this 9 years?
Yeah, about 9 years. I get more serious every year, so we'll see how serious I can get.
You kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but is there anything that is what's a challenge? I guess what's hard? What's your least favorite part?
My least favorite part is it's actually the kerfing. I used to not like the putting on the frets, but I actually kind of like that now. It's very, very meditative. It's very, you just kind of file it, put the music on, just going away. It's very, very relaxing. I guess it's weird. I don't like doing the curving on the inside because the way I do curving, I need to figure out a different way to do it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. You got to redo it. So make sure I'll have more guitars.
Pleasure.
All right, thank you for stopping by. Thank you. Yeah, you're good.
Zoom out. First of all, I'm primarily an electric guitar player, so that's kind of why this is familiar to me. I know what's going on here. What's up with the? I guess the thing that stood out to me immediately is you got some sort of carbon fiber, and then the wood it's not a solid body.
It's all modularized.
Oh,
you can just pop it apart, right? If I wanted to, I could swap all these bits out with, a different color. And but you have to have some place to hang the straps. The armrest is nice and organic and round, whereas the carbon fiber plate wouldn't be in that space. You'd have to mold one. It eliminates a ton of weight. And the backbone down the middle allows everything to still be wood in terms of the signal path, and then you just strip away all the other wood that doesn't need to be there, and the carbon fiber does all the structural work.
Right. And so that doesn't compromise acoustics at all in any way?
Not really. What happens is you end up with a little more initial pick energy coming out of the guitar, so it's a little more aggressive and interesting. Not interesting, that's the wrong word, because electric guitars can be awesome. But it's just a slightly different performance experience, right? I like it a lot. I've gigged with that guitar a few times, and it works great. So.
And what's the actual wood? I guess what wood choices have you made?
So this is roasted maple with rosewood, pretty standard. These two backbones are about a 35-year-old piece of African mahogany I bought from a friend. And then this is sort of half flame, half quilted maple.
Okay. Wow.
And then these pieces are actually finished with an 1800s rifle finish, just because I could do it. So it looks cool. It's a really pretty way to handle the maple. Those two guitars are both koa wood.
Sorry, what?
Those two guitars are both koa wood for the blocks.
Okay. Wow, interesting. And so, can you swap out, for example, like, is everything like, so these sections here and then the neck?
You can pop the whole thing apart with an Allen key in about 5 minutes and swap everything out.
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen something like that before.
That's probably because nobody's done it, and it's now patented.
It's patented.
This is my private sandbox at the moment. Yeah.
That's super.
One of the other things is if you look on the back, the apex of the two plates is offset, so when it sits on your knee, it sits at the right angle. So there's,
okay, yeah. There's a height difference in the two.
Yeah, so it's just a little more comfortable to play. I worked out all the body forms on masonite, right, getting it right before I actually started cutting carbon fiber.
Okay.
What about, do you do any other shapes?
I will.
V's
I will.
But
this is the first show I've ever done, right?
Oh, I see.
I've been to every LeConner show because I grew up around here. But this is the first time I've ever showed. So yesterday and today are the first time people have seen these. I'd like to continue to do other body styles for sure, and use some of the other colors and materials.
How much is this guitar?
$7,500.
Okay.
And that may be a show price. You know, I'm trying to figure this all out on the fly, right?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Would you ever? I'm a metalhead. Do you do any like extended range stuff? Would you ever consider extended 7, 8 string stuff like that?
7 strings.
I haven't done any of that yet, right?
Oh, okay.
I probably could figure it out. I'd have to redo the neck pockets and the CAD bodies and all that kind of stuff. Right now it's all just standardized strap, but that would be cool to do. I would love a 7 string. That'd be fun to do. I've never owned one. Yeah, it's funny. I have an old Marshall, and it just these things sound killer through that.
Really?
It's a non-directional carbon fiber.
I see.
If you look, they're the same all the way through, right?
Okay.
There's one side is sanded more finely than the other, so there's a back and a front. And they run the stuff through a great big wide belt sander to thickness it. Okay. So you just keep swapping out the grits until you get to the fine grit you want. It's hard on sandpaper. Carbon fiber's hard on everything. It dulls your drill bits, it dulls your saw blades. Yeah, I work really hard to keep the dust under control. The edges are sanded by hand right now, out to like 2,000 grit, and I do it wet sanding. It's a mess. I do it by hand. We're still dialing in a couple of the details on the CAD bodies. Yeah, this guy, no. I cut him by hand with a jigsaw, but I had all sorts of remediation and a true respirator and the whole 9 yards, and I would suit it up so whatever carbon, it's sticky, so it sticks on stuff, so it doesn't float around. But yeah, no.
So you mentioned a couple times that this is like kind of a new thing for you. You're like a newcomer here. How long have you been like doing this? Because this is like to me, I would have never. I mean, this guy's doing this for like 30 years.
So, well, the first time I repaired and restored a guitar, I was 19. Right, and it was a 72P bass. Somebody had worn a lot of jewelry, scraped it up, then decided to refinish it and started with an 80 grit belt sander to strip it down. And then they just gave up. So I got it for cheap and stripped it down and refinished it and put a metal pickguard on it and rewired it and sold it to a guy I was in a band with. And then I've just been messing around with parts casters forever, right? And occasionally restoring some weird old guitar that was broken for a friend. I've been in a guitar making class / group in Portland for like 13 years, but that's just slowly building acoustic guitars. And I've been working on this project for about 7 years. I built the prototype, quietly, test drove it, liked it, started the patent process, got it patented, and now I'm going into production with this model. Then I hope to have more models. We'll see where it goes and what happens, right? I'm more or less a nearly retired ME, so this is what I want to do for a while.
Like the 175. What is there any? So is there any guitar here that, or any guitar in your life that you've worked on that you remember particularly fondly? These or any?
A friend of mine had an old '66 Gibson SG Special single dog ear P90, and then somewhere in the past somebody had stripped off the finish, used a drill and a chisel to put in another pickup, which the pickup covers didn't fit, so they nailed the pickups into the guitar. And then
That's abuse.
And then it died, and he played this thing in rock bands in the South in the '70s, right? And he's in my class, and he was telling me about it. And for years he said, it'll never come back to life. And I kept saying, bring it to me, and let's see what we can do. And he brought it to me, and I did bring it back to life. And he was really, really pleased and tickled, right? And I told him, I said, it's kind of like bringing somebody's dog back to life. This is a kind of a strange thing, but it's a great sounding old beaten guitar that has a lot of memories for him. So that one sticks in my mind. Yeah, and I did that 3 years ago, I think, 3-4 years ago.
At the risk of me sounding maybe negative, what's like a challenge for you for being a luthier? Like, what's the thing you like least?
Sanding?
Yeah, going to 2,000 grit.
I don't do that on the wood, right? But yeah.
Right, yeah, but that's still kind of a monument.
Effort. I mean, so I have a friend who's head of R&D for 3D printing at Hewlett Packard. And he and I have talked about, 3D printing the blocks and making it so that you can screw them together a lot more quickly, and you can do color fades and all sorts of wild stuff. I haven't done that. This is right today and yesterday and tomorrow are people looking at these and going, wow, I've never seen something like this. And I'm just collecting feedback and hoping to sell a few, bootstrap the business up.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, have you seen any success with these? Have anyone?
I've never tried to sell one before, but I've been getting great feedback all day long. People walk in, they look at them, they always look down inside, which is kind of funny. And then they can I pick it up? And I say, yep. And they pick it up and they go, wow, that's just about right. And so we'll see. So the feedback's all positive. Or somebody pulls the trigger.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of instruments out here, but this is definitely the one that I walked by. I had to do a double take on it.
Every year there's just unbelievably great instruments and unbelievable good workmanship and beautiful wood. It's just a fabulous show. Some of the best people around.
Oh, for sure.
Nothing but good things to say about all these luthiers.
Well, I think I'm out of questions, man, but thank you so much for stopping by.
Pleasure.